Welcome to this week's newscast from Power Engineering International. I'm Kelvin Ross. In this week's headlines, Total is to acquire a controlling stake in French battery group Saft. A South African minister tells PowerGen Africa that coal and nuclear are the only real options for baseload power in Africa. The search has resumed for 3 workers killed when Didcot power station in the UK collapsed. And the UK's new Prime Minister has scrapped the Department of Energy and Climate Change. Energy giant Total is to become the majority shareholder of French battery specialist Saft. Total will hold just over 90% of shares in Saft, which is the world's leading manufacturer of industrial nickel batteries and primary lithium batteries. The Paris headquartered group employs over 4,000 staff in 19 countries. In a statement, it said that joining with Total would enable it to accelerate its development. South Africa's Minister of Public Enterprises, Lynn Brown, said this week that the lack of electricity access remains one of Africa's biggest barriers to development and prosperity. Speaking at the opening of PowerGen Africa in Johannesburg, Brown said that millions of people in Africa were trapped in poverty because of a lack of access to power. And she noted that while the use of renewables was increasing, major investment in transmission grids was needed if they were ever going to reach their full potential. Therefore, she said, for baseload generation, there are still only 2 real options, coal and nuclear. William Price of Enel Green Power South Africa agreed that Africa has an abundance of renewable resources, but he stressed that availability is not the only consideration. What was needed for renewables to flourish, he said, was political stability, appropriate regulatory environments, and government support for public-private partnership structures. Search has resumed this week for the bodies of 3 men who were killed when part of Didcot power station in the UK collapsed. The men were buried under 20,000 tonnes of rubble when the accident happened during demolition work at the decommissioned coal plant in February. The body of a 4th worker killed in the incident has already been recovered. The search for the 3 bodies was halted in May because there were fears that the remaining structure of the power plant was too unstable. At the weekend, a controlled explosion that was carried out using remote-controlled robots demolished what was left of the building, opening the way for search teams to continue looking for the workers. The Department of Energy and Climate Change in the UK has been abolished by new Prime Minister Theresa May. Energy has become part of a beefed-up business department called Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, with Greg Clark as its Secretary of State. This means that for the first time in almost 10 years, the UK does not have a Secretary of State with sole responsibility for energy. The previous Energy Secretary, Amber Rudd, who was an ardent advocate of Remain in the EU referendum, has been promoted to Home Secretary, while former Energy Minister Andrea Leadsom, who was a pro-Leave campaigner and also a potential candidate for Prime Minister until she withdrew from the race, is now Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. The decision to scrap DEC has been slammed by Amber Rudd's 3 previous Energy Secretaries, Ed Davey, Chris Huhne and Ed Miliband. Miliband called the move plain stupid. Huhne said that the number of cabinet voices with a remit for climate change had been halved with one stroke, and Davey called it a major setback for the UK's climate change efforts. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.